Many years after graduation, Darcy had already achieved fame and success. At the class reunion, someone tried to set us up. Darcy, remember that little follower who used to chase after you all the time? Since you're both unmarried, why not give it a try? He slowly raised his left hand, smiling without any emotion. I'm married. Everyone was shocked, only I kept my head down and said nothing. I can't figure out, Darcy, why he's still wearing this ring. Clearly, we divorced 3 years ago. Hello. Everyone, welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful novels every day. Now the story begins. The class reunion was halfway through. The class monitor pushed the door open and said excitedly, "Look who's here." Following everyone's gaze, my breath caught. After 3 years apart, Darcy seemed even more mature. When greeting, the corners of his eyes curved slightly, exuding an aura of seasoned composure. I heard he was recently named the city's outstanding young entrepreneur. Already worth hundreds of millions at such a young age. While everyone exchanged pleasantries, I continued to reply to messages with my head down. Out of the corner of my eye, I noticed Darcy take a seat in the empty spot diagonally across from me. His gaze swept past me indifferently, not lingering for even a second, yet I noticed the strikingly white flakes on his shoulders, made more visible by his black trench coat. So it was snowing outside. My phone kept vibrating. The female classmate sitting next to me couldn't resist teasing. "Olivia, is that your boyfriend, checking up on you so closely?" Back in school, she always had a loud voice. I instinctively glanced toward the front diagonally. Darcy was still chatting with others. The clouds were pale and the breeze light, as if nothing had happened. I shook my head with a smile. "No, it's my mom. She's urging me to go on a blind date next week." Everyone present was around 27 or 28 years old. Some had already settled down and started families, while more were like me, facing parental pressure to get married. A few girls empathized and began venting. "My mom is so desperate to set me up on blind dates. It's like she's trying to breed pigs. As long as the genders match and both pigs look healthy, nothing else matters." "Olivia, don't say I didn't warn you. Most decent men get snapped up internally long before they ever hit the open market." At that moment, a chubby guy suddenly slammed the table and stood up. "Darcy, remember that little follower who used to trail after you all the time?" His speech was slurred. Clearly he'd had too much to drink. Darcy remained silent. The person thought he couldn't recall. "It's Olivia. The one who bombarded you with over a dozen love letters and confessed to you in front of the entire school at the high school graduation party." It took me a while to recognize this person as our class's sports committee member because he had gained weight. In the past, he had no other hobbies but enjoyed playing matchmaker in class. And sure enough, since you're both single, why not give it a try? In an instant, everyone's gossipy eyes turned to me and Darcy. 10 years later, it turns out no one had forgotten about this, all eagerly awaiting me and Darcy to give a conclusion to this love story that spanned their youth. No matter what the final outcome of the story is, Darcy finally looked at me with full justification. When our eyes met, he slowly raised his left hand, smiling without any emotion. "I'm married." These 4 words struck like a bolt from the blue. Everyone was astonished. "Darcy, when did you get married? Why didn't you notify your brothers when you held the wedding? Kept it so well under wraps. Haven't seen you post any photos of your wife on social media either." Only I kept my head down and didn't speak. I couldn't understand why Darcy was still wearing that ring. We had clearly divorced 3 years ago. Thinking back now, it seems inevitable that Darcy and I would end up getting divorced. Between us, there was no proposal, no wedding, not even a single wedding photo taken. The year we graduated from college, his mother was diagnosed with cancer. Carrying a 10-pound fruit basket, I went to visit his mother in the hospital once again. As he was leaving, he suddenly grabbed my hand outside the hospital room. "Olivia, let's get married." An utterly unexpected sentence, like a pie falling from the sky, nearly knocked me out. Afraid that Darcy might change his mind the next second, I eagerly agreed. And Darcy, the day we got our marriage certificate was just an ordinary weekend. There weren't many people at the civil affairs office. The staff took our photo. "Come on, groom, move a bit closer to the bride. Don't keep a straight face. Smile like the bride does." "Okay." The red background photo on our marriage certificate became our first picture together. After the vow ceremony, I skipped the girlfriend phase altogether and directly became Darcy's wife. At that time, Darcy was just starting his entrepreneurial journey. To avoid a long-distance relationship with him, I gave up a decent teaching position at a private school in another province. Following his advice, I prepared to take the civil service exam within the province. Perhaps he knew deep down that he had wronged me. When we went to the jewelry store to buy a ring, Darcy promised me that we would have a proper wedding ceremony once everything settled down, so I secretly resolved to be a considerate wife and thoughtfully chose a less expensive plain band ring. After all, what matters more to me isn't material things, but Darcy's genuine feelings for me. After marriage, we rented a 40-square-meter apartment together, though the space was small. Our life together was sweet. We would hold hands and stroll through supermarkets on weekends like any young couple, embracing each other late at night as we fell into bliss. A year later, his mother passed away. Holding me, he shed tears for the first time. Olivia, I have no family left. Darcy's parents divorced when he was very young. His mother hoped he would become exceptionally successful and had always been very controlling over him. Many people think Darcy is aloof, but perhaps deep down he's also yearning for love, so I comforted him again and again, telling him, "You still have me, I'm your family too." Darcy started spending day and night at the company, using intense work to cope with the pain of losing a loved one. Due to long-term irregular eating habits, he developed stomach problems and was hospitalized. From then on, I started bringing meals to his company for him. That was the first time I met Rosalind. By then, Darcy's career was already showing signs of success. His startup team had successively recruited several like-minded alumni. Among them was Rosalind, Darcy's direct senior from the computer science department. Rosalind not only participated in numerous software design competitions during her academic years but also boasts extensive project experience. Darcy was deeply grateful that she resolutely resigned from a major internet company to join their team. I stood outside the door holding a thermal lunchbox, silently listening to them discuss topics I couldn't comprehend at all. The heated discussion came to an abrupt halt. The two finally reached a consensus on a certain issue. Darcy had an admiring glint in his eyes. "Good, let's proceed with your plan." I felt an emptiness in my heart. I've never seen Darcy with such an expression before. Lost in thought, Rosalind nudged her lips in my direction. "Darcy, your little girlfriend is here." He glanced back at me and corrected, "It's my wife." "Oh right, I keep getting it wrong. Not many people get married as young as you do." I awkwardly put down the thermal container. Suddenly, I felt out of place here. As I was leaving, I heard Rosalind ask Darcy, "Your wife doesn't seem to be in the same line of work. What does she do?" "A teacher." Darcy seemed reluctant to talk about me in a work setting. Rosalind pressed further, "I also have friends who are teachers at universities. Maybe they're even colleagues. Is she a high school teacher or a university professor?" "She's still preparing for the civil service exam." "Oh, I see. No wonder she has time to bring you meals." "Don't worry, these days, passing the civil service exam is quite easy." What was easy in Rosalind's eyes, I failed at, because I remained unemployed for so long. My university career advisor recently contacted me, saying they could help me find a job, but since the job location was outside the province, Darcy firmly opposed me going. He lowered his gaze to flip through the scattered civil service exam papers on my desk, laughing lightly, as if trying to encourage me. "Olivia, it's not that hard, just put in a little more effort next time, and you'll definitely pass." I bit my lip, unable to speak. Darcy seemed to forget that I wasn't born with a sharp mind. Math problems that others understand in one try take me 10 attempts to grasp. I don't have many strengths, but persistence is one of them, especially when it comes to pursuing him. Darcy is a genius academic, ranking first in every exam. I was an art student, consistently ranking at the bottom of my grade in every exam. Back then, to get closer to his school, I buried myself in practice at the art studio every day. My fingers were blistered from holding brushes before I barely managed to get into the second-tier normal university next to his, whose standards was his not difficult based on. After all, it's obvious, I started dreaming frequently. In the dreams, the one standing beside Darcy wasn't me. Instead, it was Rosalind, who was more in tune with him and his equal. No matter how hard I tried, I couldn't catch up with his pace. No matter how I called out to him, he never turned back. Perhaps he noticed my prolonged low spirits. After our intimate moment that day, Darcy gathered me into his arms and said, "Honey, since I'm not busy these days, let's have our wedding ceremony now. I'll also take half a month off to accompany you on a honeymoon to relax." "Okay." Just like that, I was easily Darcy sweet-talked into agreement. However, organizing a wedding turned out to be far more complicated than I had imagined. Even though we hired a wedding planning company, I couldn't help but worry about everything: the venue decorations, the wedding banquet menu, the bride's bouquet, and so on. After all, this is the only wedding I'll have in my lifetime. Just designing the wedding favor boxes alone kept me up for several nights in a row. putting in even more effort than I did for my graduation project. That evening, I excitedly showed the freshly completed design draft to Darcy. He quickly glanced up at the computer screen. Yeah, looks good. I frowned at the draft and said hesitantly, I just can't decide between these two candy boxes. Honey, could you help me choose? This one has more capacity, but this one is more delicate. Darcy was texting someone, though I didn't know who. The corners of her eyes crinkled with faint amusement as she still managed to reply to me, either way is fine. Suddenly, I no longer felt like continuing the conversation. Seeing my silence, Darcy closed his laptop and pulled me onto his lap by the waist. Honey, where were you just now? I forced a smile. It's nothing, you go ahead with your work. It wasn't really anything important anyway. A week before the wedding, I went out as usual to bring Darcy some food. I just got home when I received a call from the wedding planning company, saying there was a last-minute change to an important part of the ceremony and asked me to quickly choose between two options. I couldn't make up my mind, and Darcy wasn't answering my calls. When I rushed to their company's entrance, I saw Darcy expressionlessly throw the meal I brought him into the trash. Rosalind stood by with crossed arms, teasing him. You just don't know how lucky you are, having such a wonderful wife and still not being satisfied. His words sounded like complaints, but his tone told a different story. Do you think I want to waste food? It's all because we were discussing the project progress, and the meal got cold and inedible. All right, I get it. This one's on me. What would you like to eat? Darcy carefully restored the insulated container to its original state. His movements were swift and precise, as if he had done this countless times before. Finally, as if struck by a thought, he sighed. Sometimes she's just too good to me. Her kindness actually makes me feel under a lot of pressure. At that moment, I seemed to smell the foul stench of rotting food from the trash can. I felt nauseous and fled in panic. Darcy called me several times in a row. In the past, no matter when or where, as long as it was his call, I would always answer immediately, but this time, I simply turned off my phone. When he rushed home, he found me sitting on the carpet with swollen eyes, surrounded by piles of shredded paper. Those were the love letters I wrote to Darcy in high school, 18 in total, brimming with my overflowing love. He recognized it and immediately stepped forward to stop me. Olivia, what are you doing? And what's this about the wedding? Why did you suddenly call the wedding company to cancel it? I struggled desperately to break free from him. I picked up an intact love letter and tore it to pieces right in front of him. Just like exposing our relationship that appeared intact on the surface but had long been shattered beyond repair, I looked at him and said word by word, perhaps in your eyes, I'm no different from a little kitten. You can casually beckon and play with me when you need me, then coldly leave me aside when you don't. You refuse to spare any thought for me. You're not curious about what's on my mind. What I say doesn't matter, and neither do my feelings. Darcy, do you think marrying me is just some lofty act of charity on your part? Darcy gripped my wrist tightly. Is it because of Rosalind? Someone saw you coming to see me this afternoon. I shook my head. He didn't believe it and patiently explained to me. I told you, she and I are just ordinary colleagues. We've never even been alone together in private. If you don't believe me, you can check my phone, look through my chat history, check anything you want. Seeing me keep shaking my head, he finally got angry. Olivia, do you really not trust me at all? Must we argue over such a trivial matter? Yet I suddenly calmed down. You see, Darcy, even at a time like this, you still think I'm being unreasonable. Sometimes I wonder if we're actually not compatible at all, and it's just me forcing things. I'll never understand those model algorithms and technical jargon you talk about, and you're completely uninterested in the comics and movies I mention. You don't like me touching your things without permission, and you don't want to share your work life with me. If I so much as exchange an extra word with any of your male colleagues, you'll give me the cold shoulder all evening. But Darcy, my heart is made of flesh too. It can hurt, it can ache. Even so, I'm still doing my best to be good to you. Because you said I'm your only family left in this world, but I've taken 99 steps toward you, and you won't even take one more step toward me. You're avoiding it, you're stepping back. My nose tingled, and tears streamed down uncontrollably. Darcy, I'm so tired. All these years, I've chased after Darcy with all my heart. He was the one who reached out to me first. He was the one who said he wanted to spend the rest of his life with me. I believed it. I offered my sincere heart without reservation. Yet giving without expecting anything in return is like a stone sinking into the sea, despairingly silent without the slightest echo. I began to feel lost, torn between hope and fear. I became jealous, ugly. I became nothing like myself. I don't know what meaning such a marriage still holds. Under Darcy's gaze, I slowly removed the ring, Summoning all my strength, I forced myself to say those words, "Darcy, let's get divorced." His eyes reddened, and his voice trembled slightly. "Are you sure?" Darcy, what a proud man he is. Naturally, he wouldn't bow his head to me, nor would he ever try to stop me from leaving. I know. I watched as the light in his eyes gradually dimmed. "Fine, you said it yourself, Olivia. Since you want a divorce, don't regret it." The class reunion was in its latter half when a snowstorm suddenly hit. Unfortunately, the hot spring villa we rented was located on the mountain. As a result, I had to change plans and stay overnight at the villa with everyone, waiting for the snowstorm to ease by morning before driving back. While soaking in the hot spring, the girls chatted idly. In high school, I even had a crush on the class sports committee member. Now, sigh. I can only say time is a ruthless butcher. Yeah, who would have thought the most mischievous boy in our class would become such a steady dad after settling down? Only Darcy seems unchanged before and after marriage. Speaking of Darcy, he wasn't even on our reunion list. I asked the class monitor and found out he rushed over after canceling a project kickoff meeting at the last minute. It's really strange. In high school, Darcy always kept to himself. I never saw him close enough with anyone to make a special trip for a class reunion. I inexplicably clicked on that familiar number. Over these 3 years, Darcy sent me a total of 3 text messages. The first one came a month after the divorce. "You left a few pieces of clothing in my closet. Want to come pick them up this weekend?" The second article was during the new year in the second year after the divorce. "I brought some things to visit your parents. Now I'm downstairs at your place." The third article has only 3 words, "Olivia." Probably he regretted it the moment he sent it, and what he wanted to say afterward remains unknown. I didn't reply to him at all. The moment the steel seal stamped the divorce certificate, I had already decided to completely sever my feelings for him. If it weren't for this class reunion, Darcy and I would probably never have crossed paths again in this lifetime. After soaking in the hot springs, I said goodbye to everyone in the lobby. They had other entertainment plans. While I was ready to return to my room to sleep, from a distance, I saw Darcy standing in the corridor with arms crossed, seemingly waiting for someone. I walked past him without even a glance. He called out to me, "Olivia." I ignored him, lowering my head to open the door with the keycard, but someone held the doorknob. Darcy's tone finally showed a ripple of emotion. "Olivia, explain clearly, what's this about a blind date?" I was understanding Darcy less and less. "We've been divorced for 3 years, what right does he have to interfere in my personal life?" At this hour, the Night Owl classmates had agreed to stay up all night playing board games at the chess and card room. I didn't want to be seen by anyone, but Darcy forcibly grabbed my wrist and pulled me outside. "Olivia, let's talk." I couldn't break free, and a sudden surge of anger rose in my heart. I snapped at him sharply. "I have nothing to talk to you about. It's exactly as you heard. I'm not getting any younger, so what's wrong with going on a blind date?" His movements didn't pause. "I won't allow it," I reminded him with a smile. "Darcy, have you forgotten that we're already divorced?" This remark seemed to touch a nerve, as he angrily retorted, "I know, of course I know. After all these years of knowing each other, don't I even have the right to ask a single question?" I finally shook him off. Before I could speak, someone else beat me to it. "Olivia, Darcy, you're still awake." Perfect timing. The class monitor is still in his room sweet-talking his wife on the phone. "We're short on people, want to join us?" I didn't want to continue being Darcy's target, so I hastily agreed. Little did I know he'd follow me like a persistent ghost. Truth or dare round. A male classmate I wasn't very close with drew the question card, and I happened to be the one being punished. He didn't give me a hard time and symbolically chose a truth question, asking me where I work now. After I answered, everyone was surprised. "Wow, Olivia, so you first worked as a teacher at an art training institution, then were poached by a student's parent to become a children's book illustrator at a publishing house. Right, that's practically a career change. I really admire you. I hate my current job to death, but I don't have your courage to start all over again." I used to like Darcy. The class beauty who was standing nearby said sarcastically, "What's so admirable about that?" "What's truly admirable is a man and woman alone pulling and tugging at each other in the middle of the night, something I could never do. Anyway, I came with Darcy." With the class beauty's exaggerated description, it was hard for everyone not to read too much into it. Their gossipy, speculative eyes all turned toward me, as if saying, "Darcy already has a family. Olivia, how can you still shamelessly throw yourself at him?" I looked at Darcy, waiting for him to voluntarily explain the truth to everyone, yet all he gave me in response was silence. Perhaps it's because he's still angry right now, so he wants to punish me this way. or perhaps in his eyes. Having been married to me is itself something shameful and degrading. That's why he was unwilling to bring me into his circle or introduce his friends to me in the past. I have no doubt that if I hadn't called him husband in front of his colleagues back then, he wouldn't even have disclosed our relationship to them. Then the class monitor came over and livened up the atmosphere again. When playing the I have you don't have game, the atmosphere gradually heated up, to avoid drinking penalties. Everyone went all out when it was their turn to speak. I've had a good friend share a lovey-dovey video of her and my ex-boyfriend with me. None of you have that, right? Drink up, what's this? In my most love-struck year. I even paid for my ex-boyfriend and his girlfriend's hotel room. A quiet girl finally made the game a bit more normal. I have a daughter. Someone said, hey, Olivia isn't drinking, that's not fair. I could have just let it slide. But suddenly I didn't want to anymore. I looked at Darcy and said deliberately, with a hint of retaliation, I didn't cheat. The entire room fell silent instantly. Darcy dropped the cup, and it shattered on the floor. My goal was achieved. The game ultimately ended with Darcy dragging me away on the spot. Everyone quickly guessed most of the story. I had been married to Darcy, got divorced, and after our divorce, I gave birth to a daughter. Messages started pouring into me. So today Darcy came for you. Is this your real-life version of a runaway pregnancy and second-chance romance novel? Olivia, don't take this for granted. Nowadays, men with Darcy's caliber are harder to find than a needle in a haystack. I still trust my buddy's character. Since he's gone this far for you, just forgive him already. Clearly, these messages weren't sent just to me. Darcy waved his phone at me and said, seems like everyone is quite looking forward to us getting back together. I turned off the screen. Then their expectations are going to be disappointed. He effortlessly poured me a glass of water, smiling with a slight curl of his lips. Olivia, stop saying one thing and meaning another. If you had no feelings for me, why would you have this child? Just 1 month after divorcing Darcy, I discovered I was pregnant. The doctor said that if I terminated this pregnancy, my physical condition might make it very difficult to conceive again. After much consideration, I still decided to go through with the pregnancy. My parents were initially adamantly opposed to me becoming a single mother, but coincidentally, there was good news about our old house in the urban village being slated for demolition. An extra person means an extra apartment to share. Their attitude changed in an instant, and the baby in my belly suddenly became the family's little lucky star. After my daughter was born, I named her Renata. I hope she'll be confident and optimistic, with a clear plan in mind. Renata is only 3 years old but can already perform addition and subtraction within 100. Her intellectual talent is indeed thanks to Darcy. I stated matter-of-factly, because I think your genes are quite good. Darcy's expression gradually darkened. So, you're using me as a free sperm bank. That does sound about right. I nodded. Tacitly acknowledging it, he sprang to his feet. Fine, very well, Olivia, you're something else. This was the last sentence Darcy said to me during this class reunion. I admit there was an element of deliberately provoking him in my actions. I thought with things having reached this point, Darcy probably wouldn't bother me anymore. Yet a week later, he showed up again downstairs at my place. Darcy glanced down at the grocery basket in my hand, his voice laced with amusement. Didn't you say you were going on a blind date? Why didn't you go? Seeing that I ignored him, he added, I bought some toys for my daughter, and since the new year is approaching, I thought I'd drop by to visit my parents-in-law. As he spoke, he looked up. Your cousin is here so early. I live on the 3rd floor. Following Darcy's gaze, under the red hollow carved window decorations, a young man was playing with Renata, building blocks and occasionally lifting her high, making her laugh continuously. Actually, during past New Year celebrations, Darcy had met my cousin before. Perhaps he didn't take it to heart. That's why he mistook the person. I withdrew my gaze and told him seriously, not my cousin, he's my boyfriend. Darcy's expression twisted for a moment, but soon, he scoffed. Olivia, that excuse of yours is truly pathetic. You're the one who's supposed to be on a blind date, and you're the one with a boyfriend. Do you really think I'd believe that the boyfriend is real? Being pressured to go on blind dates is indeed real. But I couldn't be bothered to explain to him. If he doesn't believe me, so be it. I turned to leave, but he grabbed my arm to stop me. Neighbors passed by one after another, frequently glancing back at us. I had no choice but to agree to take him upstairs. My parents were cooking in the kitchen, and it was Colin who came to open the door. He was wearing a white knitted sweater, exuding a youthful and vibrant aura. After glancing at Darcy behind me, his smile grew even brighter. Is sister back, then? As if no one else was around, she kissed me. Darcy immediately darkened his face. Colin must have done it on purpose. because he immediately resumed the demeanor of a legitimate boyfriend and poured Darcy a cup of tea. I know you, ex-husband. Renata was playing with a wiggle car in the living room. Darcy tried to salvage some dignity by picking up the rabbit plush from the shopping bag, walking over to her, and squatting down. Renata, I'm daddy, come on, say daddy. Renata burst into tears under his repeated urging. She wildly beat him with the ears of her rabbit plush toy. Wah, you're not, wah, whoever treats mommy well is my real daddy. Darcy was struck dumbfounded. Clearly Renata hadn't used much force. Yet he slumped to the ground as if deflated. Colin, not one to miss stirring the pot, picked up Renata while soothing and asking, Renata, how about letting me be your daddy? Renata gradually stopped sobbing and said in a childish voice, all right. The air seemed to be filled with countless tiny sparks. Whenever these two locked eyes, crackling sounds would erupt. Before the atmosphere could grow more intense, I said to Darcy, you've seen our daughter, and the things have been delivered, you can leave now. He glanced at Renata, suppressing his voice through gritted teeth. Olivia, are you in such a hurry to kick me out, eager to be sweet with your little boyfriend? At that moment, my mom came out from the kitchen. It's the New Year season. Darcy, why don't you stay for lunch? Darcy readily agreed. While I went to the restroom, my mom pulled me aside. Sure enough, she started persuading me to get back together with Darcy. Olivia, you're still young, listen to your mother's advice. Marriage requires mutual tolerance and understanding. Don't be so stubborn. Darcy is such a catch. If you don't want him, others will be lining up. You'll regret it later. Didn't you say Colin is going abroad to study after the holiday? Are you really going to do long distance after that? Do you honestly think there's a future for you two with your age gap and you bringing a daughter into the relationship? I can see Darcy wants to reconcile with you. I won't push you to go on blind dates anymore. Think it over carefully. If not for yourself, then consider Renata. See, even my parents think I'm being foolish. They don't understand why I insisted on divorcing Darcy when he never committed any fundamental wrongs in our marriage. They don't get why I stubbornly stand my ground even when Darcy, now successful and accomplished, comes back begging for reconciliation. In their eyes, Darcy is the brilliant academic, the successful son-in-law, the compatible colleague, the wealthy boss. Only in my life, he is a cold and selfish husband. But Colin is different. He was the first to show me another possibility in an intimate relationship. Love can also be equal, healthy, and passionate. The first time I met Colin was in a bookstore. Every weekend, I love spending time there, watching children hold my picture books and read with relish, my heart filled with happiness. But on this day, a big kid came along. When I used to doodle casually, Darcy would often say to me, Olivia, you're such a grown-up now, why are you still so childish? So, I naturally feel a sense of shame when adults read my children's picture books, but the boy in front of me seems to genuinely like them. He even bought the entire set of my picture books outright. That's how I remembered him. Later, he came to intern at our publishing house. Only then did I learn his name was Colin, a senior majoring in English literature at Darcy's University. Since the topic of his graduation project was the translation of children's literature, he volunteered to be my assistant, helping to translate my picture books for overseas distribution. Colin always seems to understand my quirky and imaginative ideas. For example, a story about a rabbit without ears who finds an egg, or the story of a crocodile born into a duck family. One day he was reading my manuscript. Miss Brown Bear, who had been starved into a sorry state, asked around for directions to find the honey mountain mentioned by the bees. Mr. Cat told her Honey Mountain is by Milk Lake. Miss Dog said it's near Bone Tower. And Aunt Crow said you have to cross Bread Bridge, and so on. Suddenly it dawned on him. So there's no such thing as Honey Mountain at all. Miss Brown Bear was tricked. I gnawed on my pen, my thoughts running wild. Perhaps there really is, as long as she keeps climbing and climbing up to the highest hill. After the summer internship ended, Colin started pursuing me directly. Upon learning I had a daughter, he didn't back off but instead said, what I like is your interesting soul. It has nothing to do with age or any other identity. I knew all along Colin was going to study abroad, so from the very beginning, I never intended to be with this guy who's 5 years younger than me, until he said he was willing to stay for me. I rejected him even more firmly. So he settled for the second best. Then let's be together until winter break ends, sis. I'm not asking for too much, just give me 3 months, he said bitterly. You were my first love. The words of refusal became too difficult to say. Deep down, I knew I had already fallen for him. So I said yes, 3 months, just enough time to leave no regrets between us. After dinner, my parents took Renata out for a walk. Colin mysteriously pulled me into the bedroom and proudly handed me a photo like it was a treasure. Big sister, look. Doesn't this count as my exclusive wedding photos? Half a month ago, a friend dragged me to a photo studio to take artistic portraits. During a break, Colin came to pick me up. He borrowed a veil from the next studio and secretly pinned it onto my bun. I knew nothing at that time. He called my name and pressed the shutter the moment I turned around. I never told Colin about the details of my relationship with Darcy. Naturally, he wouldn't know this was the first wedding dress photo in my life. The girl in the photo has a sparkle in her eyes. With a bright and radiant smile, it turns out that love is something that, even if you cover your mouth, will still escape through your eyes, lost in thought. Colin leaned against the table corner and awkwardly kissed me while lowering his head. Feeling my response, he accidentally bumped his knee against the chair. Darcy's voice suddenly sounded outside the door. Olivia, what are you doing in there? Inside. Colin and I were kissing passionately. Lost in each other, the knocking on the door outside continued incessantly. At this moment, I have only one thought. Darcy, why hasn't left yet? I'm so fed up. Later, Darcy was banging on the door so loudly it almost became a nuisance. Colin finally let go of me. He turned the unlocked door handle and impatiently licked his lips. Ex-husband, my sister and I are in a proper romantic relationship. What do you think we were doing? Darcy looked at my swollen lips, and his eyes turned red as well. He pushed past Colin without a care and barged into my bedroom. On the bookshelf right across from my room's entrance, there's a full row of newly arrived English picture book proofs. Mine and Colin's names were written side by side in the most prominent position. He averted his gaze as if avoiding something, only to see the photo on the table. He stared blankly at my dazzlingly bright smile in the photo, finally speaking after a long silence. This was the first time I'd ever seen him so humble. Olivia, I overheard the conversation between your mother and you. Your young boyfriend will soon be going abroad. Renata is still young and shouldn't grow up without a father's love. I know you're still in the honeymoon phase and won't listen to me now, but it's okay. I can. He took a deep breath and spoke as if he had made up his mind. I can wait for you to break up. Colin scoffed lightly. Ex-husband, wake up. Sis stopped loving you long ago. Even if you're willing to be the other woman for love, she wouldn't want you. Darcy didn't bother me again until after the new year, and just the day before yesterday, Colin had already flown to the United States to study abroad. Before parting, we kissed at the airport, and I tasted his salty, bitter tears. He whispered softly in my ear, "Thank you, sister, for these 3 months. I've been very happy. Let me tell you a secret. I actually fell in love with you at first sight." A sharp pain shot through my heart. I think I overestimated myself. I'm far from being able to bid him farewell as calmly as I imagined. But I must pull myself together and prepare to attend the award selection at the Bologna Children's Book Fair in Italy. Who would have thought that shortly after getting in the car, Darcy started calling me incessantly. By the 10th call, I couldn't help but answer and yell at him. "Darcy, what the hell are you doing again?" He growled. "Olivia, you're not allowed to leave. Stop the car." I couldn't understand his inexplicable words. Glancing up at the rearview mirror, I froze. Darcy was driving his black SUV, actually chasing my car like crazy. "Darcy, what are you doing? Are you insane?" He sharply turned the steering wheel and overtook another sedan. "I'm crazy, and if I'm crazy, you'll stay for me." Before the words could fade, a deafening crash erupted from behind. The black SUV was no longer visible in the rearview mirror. I quickly asked the driver to pull over. Darcy indeed had an accident. Fortunately, the car crash wasn't too serious. Darcy had just swerved to avoid hitting a pedestrian and ended up crashing into the guardrail. I called 120 for him and was about to leave. Unexpectedly, he frantically pushed open the car door, his legs giving way as he collapsed to his knees. His forehead was bleeding, yet he grabbed me tightly, his eyes filled with pleading, like an unwanted dog. "Olivia, I regret it. I've regretted it for a long time. Please, don't go with him, okay?" It was then that I realized Darcy seemed to have misunderstood something, but he soon passed out and was carried onto a stretcher by the arriving ambulance. Of course, I still left. After all, this competition and award are of utmost importance to me. When I returned to the country a week later, out of humanitarian concern, I symbolically visited him in the hospital. Darcy had a fractured leg and bandages wrapped around his head, sitting listlessly on the bed as he asked me, "Back already?" "Where's your little boyfriend?" I said calmly. "We broke up." The cup in his hand slipped, water spilling onto the quilt and soaking a large patch. Darcy uttered a faint "oh," but his spirits visibly lifted instantly, the joy at the corners of his eyes and brows impossible to conceal. Not 2 days later, I received a call from the nurse's station after work. "Hello, may I speak to a family member of Mr. Darcy? The patient has rehabilitation scheduled today and requires family accompaniment." From then on, I started receiving several similar calls every week. I even learned to anticipate their questions. "Okay, got it. I've seen Darcy's films, and theoretically his fracture isn't severe, yet it hasn't healed for a long time. For this reason, my mom specially stewed pork bones and asked me to bring them to him for nourishment. But it seems my mom has had a change of heart. For the sake of my marriage prospects, she's decided to take multiple approaches simultaneously recently. She's been planning to introduce me to the son of one of her old classmates. Upon learning that this blind date was a doctor and worked right next to Darcy's hospital building, I didn't refuse. As it happens, there was something I wanted to verify. I deliberately set the blind date location at the coffee shop downstairs in the hospital building. The doctor is 3 years older than me and had a wife who passed away due to difficult childbirth. He has been unwilling to remarry all these years and only agreed to meet me under pressure from his parents. This put my mind at ease, relieving me of any psychological burden. Before long, Darcy's phone call came through. "Olivia, why didn't I see you in the rehabilitation department? Where have you been?" I calmly took a sip of tea and said, "I'm at the cafe downstairs for a blind date. I'll be there later." Then I opened the stopwatch on my phone. When the digital counter rolled to 4 minutes and 32 seconds, Darcy appeared, panting heavily and leaning on a crutch. I had calculated in advance that for someone with mobility issues, this distance would take at least 10 minutes to cover. Darcy's fracture had clearly healed long ago. He'd been faking it all along. I glared at him, raising the timer with sarcastic emphasis and said, "Wow, is this a medical miracle happening?" Suddenly clutching his stomach, his voice weak and unsteady. "Olivia, I don't feel so good." I no longer believed his words. "Darcy, the same trick once or twice is enough." His lips turned pale as he reached out towards me, yet before he could reach me, he collapsed unconscious on the ground. Darcy had stomach problems years ago. I repeatedly reminded him, yet he still didn't eat on time. Now it's happened. He's finally developed stomach cancer. Fortunately, it's at a mid-stage, not yet beyond medical help, after surgery to remove part of the lesion. Darcy seemed to age dramatically in an instant. When I went to visit him, he was lying in bed, staring at the ceiling and murmuring, "These days, it feels like I've suddenly come to understand many things. My heart seems to have been sick for a very, very long time. I always wanted to test your love by pushing you away again and again, yet when you held me tight, I couldn't believe I was worthy of love, so I kept retreating, staying silent, hurting you deeply." As he spoke, his voice began to choke up. "Olivia, all these years I've wronged you. My mistakes were too grave. This is my retribution, what I deserve. I brought this upon myself. I deserve to die, even though Darcy once hurt me deeply. But at this moment, I don't feel the satisfaction of vengeance. On the contrary, my heart feels as heavy as a stone." I waved my hand and said, "All right, focus on your treatment and don't overthink things." Darcy pointed to the metal box under the bed, signaling me to open it. Turns out it contained 18 love letters, each stiffened by layers of transparent tape. "Olivia, I've mended them. I thought I could fix them." I took out one of the letters, holding this naive yet fervent love up to the sunlight. It instantly became riddled with holes. "Darcy, look, no matter how hard you try to restore something that's already broken, cracks are inevitable." He let out a long sigh. "Yes, you're right." Perhaps this was Darcy's first realization. "We really can't go back to how we were." As I was leaving the hospital, I unexpectedly ran into an acquaintance. Rosalind was pregnant, and her blonde, blue-eyed husband was helping her down the stairs. She recognized me too. After saying a few words to her husband, she walked towards me. "Hi, Olivia, long time no see." 3 years had passed, and I could finally look her in the eyes and greet her naturally, no longer burdened by that inexplicable sense of inferiority. It turned out Rosalind had voluntarily left the company after Darcy and I got divorced. Although Darcy didn't say it, she could sense the blame in Darcy's gaze when he looked at her. After all, on the day the conflict between me and Darcy erupted, Rosalind had indeed pulled Darcy aside to discuss the project progress, causing Darcy to miss mealtime, and I happened to witness him throwing away his food. She didn't feel good about it either and later even blamed herself so much that she went to see a therapist. "All right, don't look at me with such guilty eyes. If it weren't for this incident, I wouldn't have met my current husband." Hearing her say that, I felt even more embarrassed and apologized to her, admitting that I had once been jealous of her. "Oh, dear, don't say it like that. I wish you'd choose a different word." "What word?" "Admiration." I'd much prefer it if you told me you greatly admired me. When talking about Darcy's recent situation, Rosalind was not surprised at all. He's just reaping what he sowed. A classic case of avoidant attachment personality stemming from childhood emotional neglect, selfish and contradictory. He only cares about his own feelings, never his partner's, and finds it extremely hard to compromise for them. In summary, if you love him, he won't love you back. Only when you stop loving him does he become utterly devoted. All I can say is, thank goodness you escaped that misery in time. Finally, we exchanged contact information. When my baby is born, don't forget to send him a set of your children's picture books. She waved goodbye to me, playfully winking. Oh, and I want signed copies. Darcy underwent a year of postoperative chemotherapy and has basically recovered. The doctor said as long as he takes care of himself and doesn't do anything reckless, he could live to a ripe old age, but he seems to have developed an addiction to self-harm. Before being discharged from the hospital, he hesitantly mentioned that he had undergone another minor surgery. Only later did I find out that he had gotten a vasectomy. He also took the initiative to consult a lawyer early on to draft a will, leaving all his assets to me and our daughter. During our last meeting, he held on to me and asked softly, "Olivia, is there really no chance for us at all?" But before I could speak, he continued on his own. "Forget it, don't say anything, at least leave me with some hope." 2 years later, in the publishing house, everyone silently clasped their hands together as if performing some eerie ritual. I looked up from my drawing and couldn't help but ask, "What are you guys doing?" They replied, "The shortlist for the Hans Christian Andersen Award is about to be announced." We were all nervous to death, yet the person involved remained so calm. Someone even started reverse jinxing. After all, it's the Nobel Prize of Children's Literature. There aren't many illustrators in our country who've even been nominated. So the chances are slim anyway. Just being part of it is what matters. At that moment, a voice spoke up. "The results are out." Everyone erupted in excitement. "How was it? How was it? Come on, don't keep us in suspense." Of course, I made the list. At that moment, it felt like a dream. Before I could even jump up in excitement, everyone rushed over, cheering and tossing me into the air. My childhood dream was simple. While everyone dreamed of becoming scientists or astronauts, all I wanted was to bring joy to every child. Perhaps I still have a long way to go, but I'm certain I'm already on the path. It's so late, yet a delivery guy just walked in holding a bouquet of flowers. "Olivia, who is Olivia? Someone sent flowers. Come sign for them." Everyone chimed in. "The language of hydrangeas is reunion and meeting again." "Olivia, who gave these to you?" I took the flowers, and a card fell out from within. "Pick it up." The flamboyant handwriting on it reads, "Congratulations to my brown bear for finding her honey mountain." My heart starts racing, and I quickly ask the delivery guy, "The person who sent the flowers, has he already left?" The young man said, "He hasn't left, he's still waiting for you outside." I quickly ran outside. Someone stood in the night, opening their arms towards me. When I threw myself into Colin's arms, I remembered something Rosalind once told me. "Olivia, good love helps people grow. Congratulations, it seems you've met the right person." The end.